There's that moment someone leans in and asks, "Can I give you a hug?" It's meant to be tender, comforting, maybe even healing. For a lot of people, it is. But for many of us, autistics and ADHDers, something entirely different happens. Our internal alarm system flips on. In a split second, we're flooded with questions. Do I have to? Will I seem rude if I say no? Am I allowed to decline something offered with love? And here's the really tricky part. We know they mean well. We can feel the care behind the gesture, but that doesn't cancel out the anxiety or the panic rising in our bodies. From the outside, it might look like a simple moment of affection, but for many neurodivergent people, these simple moments are never simple. They're tightropes, full of invisible calculations, rehearsed scripts, and instinctual overrides. Hugs, handshakes, pats on the back. These gestures are more than physical, they're also social, and they're often layered with decades of learned pressure to conform. Hi, I'm Essie. I'm an autistic and ADHD therapist. Today, we're going to unpack what's really happening when touch is expected and what it costs us to keep saying yes when our bodies are screaming no. We live in a world that runs on social autopilot. Tiny rehearsed interactions, smiles, nods, handshakes, hugs, act as scripts we're all expected to follow. They grease the wheels of social interaction. They tell others, I'm safe, I belong, I get how this works. But here's the catch. Neurodivergent folks often get handed these scripts without any of the prep time. We're pressured to improvise fluently in a language that never quite made sense to us. So when someone says, "Can I give you a hug?" the scene is already set, and the subtext is loud. A hug means connection. A hug means care. Saying yes means you're open and grateful. Saying no, that could get read as cold, ungrateful, awkward. Meanwhile, inside our heads, we're running a completely different script. Do I have the sensory capacity to handle this? Do I actually want this touch, or am I just afraid of hurting their feelings? If I say no, will they think I don't care? Will I need to explain myself? Do I have the energy to do that right now? That's the moment the performance begins. And most of us have been trained through years of subtle correction, rejection, or ridicule to default to yes, to comply, to mirror back what's expected, even when it costs us. And yes, it does cost us. Because that internal override, the one that says their comfort matters more than your body, doesn't come from nowhere. It comes from a lifetime of being told our reactions are overblown, our preferences are too picky, our boundaries too rigid. Because that internal override, the one that says their comfort matters more than your body, doesn't come from nowhere. It comes from a lifetime of being told our reactions are overblown, our preferences too picky, our boundaries too rigid. Let's talk about masking, because if you're autistic or ADHD, chances are you've been doing it for so long, you barely notice anymore. Masking is a survival strategy. It's what many of us develop in order to navigate a world that constantly tells us our natural way of existing is wrong, disruptive, or inconvenient. We learn this through subtle corrections, through the discomfort on someone's face when we answer too honestly, through the silence that follows when we don't laugh at the right moment, through the sting of being told, "Stop fidgeting, don't be so weird." So we adapt. We watch how others move through social spaces and then practice replicating it, holding eye contact even though it feels like staring into the sun, keeping our hands still when they want to stim, responding to small talk like we actually care about the weather. And yes, we accept hugs and handshakes even when they make our skin crawl, because not doing so risks making others uncomfortable. And we've been taught that our comfort should always come second. But this comes at a price. Masking isn't a neutral act, it's effortful. It takes energy to constantly monitor your body, your face, your tone of voice, to preempt how you might be perceived, to rehearse every interaction, every possible misstep before it even happens. And when you're doing that all day, every day, the wear and tear adds up. It's a kind of emotional erosion. You start to lose the thread of who you actually are beneath the performance. And still we keep doing it. When the only alternative is being labeled difficult or too sensitive, or worse, being ostracized, it can feel safer to play along, even if that means losing small pieces of ourselves in the process. If you're autistic or sensory sensitive in any way, your nervous system might process touch with way more intensity or unpredictability than neurotypicals realize. What feels soothing to one person can feel invasive to another. A soft hug that someone else experiences as gentle might land on our skin like static electricity, like cling film, like being smothered in wool. A handshake can throw us completely off balance because there's so much unpredictability baked into it. Will it be firm or limp? Will their palm be dry or clammy? Are they going to do that overly enthusiastic pump thing that rattles your whole arm? Every little variable matters. And for people with heightened interoception or tactile sensitivity, a badly timed touch can linger. It can hum under the skin, sometimes for hours. Gestures that are meant to be subtle, like a casual pat on the shoulder, can leave a kind of residue, like your whole body was intruded on without warning or consent. On the flip side, some of us do crave touch, but it has to be the right kind. Deep pressure, for instance, can be incredibly regulating for many autistics. Weighted blankets exist for a reason. A tight, grounding hug from someone we trust can help organize our whole sensory system. Here's the thing, though. It has to be on our terms. The right pressure, the right person, the right moment. Without that, even a well-meaning gesture can feel wrong. Touch then becomes a deeply layered, often unpredictable experience. And in a society that treats these moments as casual, expected, and unremarkable, that mismatch creates friction, sometimes invisible, sometimes intense. Let's pay a thought to the persistent drip of messages that we absorb as neurodivergents over a lifetime. Messages that say our differences are a problem, that our reactions are overreactions, that we should be able to tolerate touch, that our discomfort is inconvenience. That is internalized ableism. The echo in your brain that says, stop being difficult. It's just a hug. Everyone else manages. You should be grateful someone wants to connect with you. You're going to make them feel bad if you say no. Even when your nervous system is screaming, this doesn't feel right, that internalized voice is louder. It tells you that you're the one who's wrong for feeling that way, that having a boundary makes you cold or dramatic or broken. And so many of us learn to silence our needs. We say yes when we mean no and pretend it's fine because advocating for ourselves feels riskier than enduring a few seconds of unwanted touch. We tell ourselves it's easier this way, but the cost adds up. The longer we perform comfort we don't actually feel, the more disconnected we become from our own preferences and needs. We start to question whether we even deserve to have them in the first place. We question whether it's selfish to want to be met on our terms. And the most twisted part of this is that when we do try to set limits, when we say, I'd rather not hug right now, we feel guilty. Let's zoom out and look at what these social rituals actually mean. Because hugs and handshakes are what psychologists call social grooming behaviors. They're the human equivalent of what primates do when they pick bugs out of each other's fur. Gestures that signal trust, alliance, and belonging. In many cultures, these rituals are deeply coded. A handshake is a declaration. I see you. I respect you. We're okay. A hug is a symbol of care, comfort, or solidarity. People use it to say, I'm here for you, without the words. But here's the thing. When your body interprets these gestures as overwhelming, intrusive, or dysregulating, participating in the ritual becomes work. That's the sensory labor of tolerating a touch that lights up your nervous system. The emotional labor of performing gratitude, warmth, or connection that may not match your internal experience. The cognitive labor of analyzing in real time whether rejecting the gesture will cause offense, require an explanation, or damage the relationship. It's not that we don't want connection. It's not that we lack empathy or care. Rather, it's that our bodies are having a completely different experience than the person offering the gesture. And we have to manage their feelings and our own dysregulation in the same moment. Often we just end up navigating this unspoken tension of how to protect our nervous system while also being considerate about not violating theirs. For many people, it can feel like we only have two choices in social situations. Either you mask completely, pretend you're fine, say yes to touch you don't want, or you can risk rejection, judgment, or awkwardness by saying no. But there's actually a third path, one that offers both self-protection and genuine connection. It's called modulating. Modulation is different from masking. Masking is about covering and suppressing. making ourselves smaller or more palatable for the comfort of others. Modulating, on the other hand, is about adjusting, honoring what we need while still engaging on our terms. It's the difference between forcing yourself through a painful hug and offering a side hug with clear boundaries. It's choosing a fist bump or a warm verbal greeting instead of a handshake. It's saying, I'm not really a hug person, but I'm really glad you're here. It's giving yourself permission to step out of the default script and write one that fits. Modulating is also about tuning into our nervous systems in the moment. There are times when our capacity is higher, and there are moments when it's threadbare. What works one day might not the next, and modulation gives us the flexibility to respond accordingly. It's a form of self-advocacy that doesn't require explanation or apology. Here's what's powerful about it. Modulation is often welcomed. Many people, especially those who care about us, would rather connect in a way that feels good for both of us than push a gesture that causes tension. But they need the cue. They need us to offer the alternative. And when we model what's sustainable, we open space for more honest connection. For me, hugs are complicated. They're not something I seek out. In fact, most of the time, I brace for them. I accept them because I feel like I have to, because someone is trying to be kind, and I want to meet them in that kindness. In reality, when someone offers me a hug out of nowhere, my first instinct is rarely to say yes. It's often, please, no, not right now, not like this. But I don't say that, not out loud, because saying no to a hug can feel strangely high stakes. I don't want to be read as cold or rejecting, and I don't want to ruin the moment. That's why I swallow it. I can go stiff. I can hold my breath. I can try to make it look natural. But if I do want a hug, it's often very specific. I want a deep, crushing, squeeze you into the earth kind of hug, a grounding pressure. I would rather that than a soft, flattery pat on the back, the kind of touch that actually unsettles me. But to get that kind of hug, I usually have to ask for it. And asking for a different kind of touch, especially in the middle of a hug, isn't easy. Saying something like, "Can you squeeze harder?" can feel incredibly vulnerable, if not strange. It's like I'm breaking some social rule by being that direct about my sensory needs. Like I've turned a sweet moment into a negotiation. Still, I've started trying. When I do speak up, when I say actually a tight hug helps me regulate, or I don't like hugs, but I do like this, it's not just for me, it's for the relationship. And I found that in close relationships, when trust is there, at least, most people actually want to know how to love me better. They just need the information. Now let's shift to a different gesture, the one that's expected in every job interview, professional meeting, networking event, or formal introduction, the handshake. To many people, it's a basic courtesy, a standard ritual, nothing worth thinking about. But for me, and for a lot of neurodivergent folks, it's an entire storm of sensory and emotional discomfort compacted into 3 seconds of skin-on-skin contact. You never know what you're going to get. A bone crusher that jolts your wrist, a limp noodle that leaves you feeling vaguely unsettled, a palm that's clammy or too dry or sticky or weirdly warm. It's unpredictable, and unpredictability is its own kind of stressor. Some people also like to shake twice. Some keep going. Some pull you into that awkward half-hug, backslap combo that you didn't sign up for. For someone trying to stay regulated in a social setting, every one of those unknowns becomes a new variable to manage. Now add hygiene into the equation. I live with OCD. That means handshakes can be triggering. The moment someone's palm touches mine, my brain jumps straight into contamination math. What did they touch before this? Did they wash their hands? What if they coughed or sneezed into their palm 5 minutes ago? What if I now touch my face without realizing it? It's a whole cascade of intrusive questions, rituals, and discomfort. And yet I still do it, because I've been taught that not shaking hands might offend someone, that it might mark me as antisocial or difficult, that it could hurt my reputation or my chances at connection. So I override my instincts and I push through the sensory and cognitive dissonance. I smile, I engage. That's the thing about being neurodivergent in a neurotypical world. The rituals others treat as automatic are often performances we rehearse under pressure. And the energy it takes to pull them off, it's an invisible tax we're paying with our bodies and our brains. So where does this leave us? What if we reimagined the way we approach gestures of connection? What if, instead of assuming touch is universally comforting or inherently welcome, we paused? And what if we asked first and really listened? What this video is ultimately about is shifting our entire framework from assumed agreement to conscious interaction. Consent isn't a one-time transaction, it's a relationship skill, a practice of attunement. It means understanding that someone saying no thank you to a hug or a handshake is them honoring their own needs. And that's something to be respected, not punished. For neurodivergent people, consent culture is a necessary foundation for safe connection. Because we're not difficult for needing different types of touch, or none at all. We're not cold for prioritizing regulation over ritual. We're not broken because our nervous systems speak a different language. We just need the space to be known on our own terms. And creating that kind of culture isn't hard. It starts with asking, would you like a hug? And respecting the answer, whatever it is. It looks like giving people room to say, actually, a fist bump works better for me. Or not today, thanks, without flinching or apologizing or offering justification. We want to do it in ways that feel mutual, not performative. Consensual, not assumed. Regulating, not dysregulating. So if any part of this resonated, if you've ever said yes to a hug you didn't want, or powered through a handshake that left your skin buzzing, you're not alone in this. Navigating touch as a neurodivergent person can be a layered, exhausting, and costly experience. But having different needs doesn't mean there's something wrong with you. But having different needs doesn't mean there's something wrong with you. The problem is that the social world was built on assumptions that don't leave room for brains and bodies like ours. And when we name that, when we start advocating for what actually works for us, we make space for real connection. If you're learning how to modulate instead of masking, if you're experimenting with setting boundaries, if you're still figuring out what kinds of touch feel good, you're doing the brave work. You're unlearning scripts that weren't written for you. And that takes time and care and community. So I'll leave you with a question. What kind of touch actually feels good to you? And what would it be like to name that more often? If you enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe, and share. It helps other neurodivergent folks find my content. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye for now.